Hi there and welcome to The Perspective. I'm Blaise Hope. With me in the studio is Kennedy Ashinze, founding editor-in-chief and creative director for Globetrotter, the transatlantic intelligence publication. Kennedy, thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
Pleasure. What kind of magazine is Globetrotter?
Globetrotter as a magazine, thanks for having me by the way, like I said. Globetrotter as a magazine is basically a conversation between transatlantic progressive urbanites around the world in print.
It's specifically for urban people?
It's for urbanites. We call them transatlantic urbanites basically, and we're all urbanites. When every city has urbanites, so pretty much urban people, that's right.
So how did it start?
Well, Globetrotter started a couple of years back in Chicago, and it was a conversation really just like we're having amongst creatives, and in the midst of trying to problem solve things we do in the creative space, we kind of looked around each other and kind of noticed how we're kind of like global nomads. You know, we were either someone was from here and was there. At the time we were in Chicago. My parents are Nigerian. My colleagues were from the US. My family lives in London, and so on and so forth. And we just felt like that conversation had to live in print. You know, there was so much inspiration that was happening, basically, from our backgrounds. And there was a lot of commonalities there. We just figured this had to live in print.
So what are creatives?
Creatives, I know that word is thrown around loosely, but as far as we're concerned in our space, every avenue that curates people's work in that lifestyle space, basically. So basically, we in our space, creatives are from designers to photographers to DJs to art directors and the bit. So that's our umbrella, and that's how we define creatives, basically. Yeah.
So you would be, would you see yourself as, you're the editor, as a writer, or as a magazine creative? Well,
in my case, I kind of, not by choice, I wear a lot of hats. So obviously I do some writing, I curate the publication, the tone of how it's supposed to roll out, you know, the images you see, the range of topics you see. So we kind of, so that's my responsibility, basically. And we have obviously a great design team that helps make it all beautiful.
Well, yeah, I mean, images is something we'll be touching on a bit. This is an image-heavy magazine.
Absolutely.
It's big. What are the measurements?
9 by 12 inches, actually. I'm using inches. Right. I don't know what...
What's the name of the paper that it's on?
It's actually on... let's see here.
I guess it's what I would call glossy from my days.
It's glossy, but it's a gloss embossed on top of it. That's right. I mean, it does range, actually. But
is it monthly?
It is actually biannual. It's actually not a monthly publication, actually. No. It cannot be a monthly publication.
So what does it represent?
Basically, it represents the new frontier. That's the way we like to see it, because, you know, the century we're in. I mean, where are you from?
Well, I mean,
just gonna throw it back to you real quick.
Okay, I'm from London, but born in Japan.
London, born in Japan, born in the U.S., Nigerian parents. We're both here in Jakarta, and it's basically that's what the energy is about with the publication. It's basically sharing and knocking down borders as we know it, and kind of highlighting how much of these things we have in common, how much things we have in common on the creative side, on even not outside of the creative space. If it's food, if it's travel, if it's music, if it's events, basically our goal at the heart of Globetrotter is to kind of tie these things together and spark conversations and spark inspirations to collaborate, per se.
So there's no limit on what kind of topics can be covered. Is anything that which can be stretched across different cultures?
And I think you just hit the nail on the head. That's very intentional, by the way. I mean, there's still an overriding umbrella which it sits on, but there's so much range. We could, one minute, talk about a story going on in Surabaya. We could talk about something going on in Lagos, in Africa. Yeah. We could talk about something going on in Paris, in Berlin. You know, there's still this thread that ties it all in. You know, we're all, you know, with social media and the whole works, we're all pretty much open to what's going on in every region. We know what's going on. It's either we're inspired by it or we connect to it or we don't. But the curtains are basically off. So we connect to these things, and we just basically try to tell these stories on the print side of things, and hopefully inspire people. Sometimes some of the topics or people or regions we cover don't necessarily get print time, or in most publications. So we try to give them the same love like your average beautiful publication. We try to highlight them properly, great images, great stories, in-depth stories. And the idea is to spark conversations, you know. So even if you're in some small town and you're taking a look and, you know, and maybe there's no, you had some idea that no one is actually connecting with, and you read and you look and, you know, the next city, someone is doing something. The idea is just to spark conversations, spark inspiration, and collaborate.
Is there a political standpoint? I mean, is
political standpoint. Well, I wouldn't say we've never used, politics has never been involved. We do have at the heart.
Is it ignored?
It's not intentionally ignored. We actually are progressives, obviously, so we, you know, we will dabble if we have to dabble, but we're not politically driven by any means. But we're progressive. We're pretty open-minded. We like to basically support. We try to support and highlight interesting topics, be it controversial, if we believe in it in our heart of hearts. And again, it doesn't just come from me. It's a conversation that happens with the editorial team, and we push forward. But it's not. We're not politically driven. We're incredibly conscious of what's going on around the world, and pretty obsessed with things that are going on in different parts of the world that normally don't get a lot of shine. And so we try to do our best in a responsible way to bring that to the table however we can in a beautiful, responsible way.
I'm going to hold you there. We've got to take a quick commercial break. See you in a moment.